Hello everyone, welcome to a new video on my channel. I'm super bad at starting videos, but today I'm going to be making another illustration in the background whilst doing a Q&A. A couple of days ago I made this post asking you guys to drop some questions for a Q&A. This is supposed to be sort of an unofficial special for my 150,000 followers on TikTok. Thank you everyone so much. I'm not really going to be explaining the process that's in the background at all. I'm just going to jump straight into answering the questions because there's quite a few to go through. First, we have two questions from Art Dude. What art supplies are your needs and how to design/make OCs, all steps. For me, absolute art supply needs are a good mechanical pencil and a good soft eraser. I don't necessarily care for all the other stuff as much. Those are the absolute needs for me. As for character design, I think there is two main aspects that you need to focus on: story and visual design. Those two things go hand in hand, so focusing on conveying at least a part of the story for the character through their visual design is very important. This doesn't mean that you can't make casual, fun characters to just draw and play around with. Also, you're free to do as you want when you create OCs. This is a topic that really needs its own video to be fully covered, and there are people who have made videos about this regarding just visual and story aspects alone, but I cannot answer better than this for the sake of time disparity. Our next question comes from Willie, and they ask, what inspires your poses, where do you get them, how do you practice them? Most commonly with poses, I tend to use references that I've mainly found from Pinterest and Google. People have on occasion asked me what I search up when I look for poses, and I tend to use specifiers at the front, for example sitting poses, standing poses, modeling poses, dynamic poses, etc., to find more specific and varied results. As for how I practice poses, I wouldn't say I have a particular method aside from using references and breaking bodies down into shapes. Our next question comes from King, and he asks, are there any favorite artists as mangakas that have inspired you a lot? There are quite a few artists and mangakas that I take inspiration from. For example, Yanato Boso, Yuto Sano, Takeshi Obata, some social media artists like Masamune, Muki, and Precautions, as well as many others that I really can't think of right now. KTE asks, do you enjoy drawing? No. We have another question from King asking, any points in your art journey that you have loved? I think my favorite is when I made the big shift in my art style towards more semi-realism. Before that, it was maybe back when I was super into different fandoms and was mainly bullshitting around with art, but besides that, not really. Hanya asks, which OC do you relate to the most? I'm not going to tell you how or why, but my answers to this question are Salome, Galma, and Blanchette. Natsu is asking, how do you manage to draw poses and bodies in different angles? This is once again usually a game between references and breaking bodies down into shapes for me. However, what can help is also using fluid lines before you start sketching the body shapes on top. I'm kind of bad at explaining the thought process that I have behind stuff like this, I'm sorry. Laser asks, when is there going to be more lore? Probably never. No, I'm actually working on it, but I'm really slow when it comes to writing and especially with illustrating. I'm currently working on a comic though. A lot of people asked me similar or the same question, so yes, I will be posting more story related stuff. Just follow my TikTok and follow my captions also. You might find surprising things there. Another question from Willie asking how to shade skin when drawing traditionally. Please help. I'm bad at talking about how I color because I learned my methods on my own, but I focus on coloring shadows in first before focusing on building colors around the areas where I started adding shadows first. My coloring technique on all areas, be it skin, hair, or whatever, focuses on layering, so I suggest looking into that if you want your work to look similar to mine. I can't really recommend any artists, unfortunately, that would have done tutorials on it or talked about it in depth, but you can search up the technique and look into it yourself. Angel Dust asks about top 3 art supplies that I can't go without. I would still have to go with a soft eraser, a mechanical pencil, and probably some kind of sketchbook that I can work in. Can't Read That asks, who's your least favorite OC? Paracelsus. Always Paracelsus, but a close second is Valak. On the other hand, Batman asks, who's your favorite OC? I have 2 current favorites, and those are Kalma and Esther. Raspberry Pancake asks, do you think it's okay for Gen Alpha to post their art online? I think it's okay as long as the parent is watching over the child and their posts, and especially what they view, considering most platforms aren't exactly child friendly. And as far as I'm aware, most Gen Alpha are still pretty young. Forget Me Not asks, what artwork of yours took the longest? I would say I have two answers for this question, and they're either my illustrations or the comics I've made. For both of those, I usually do multiple hours of work on multiple days because they just are very time consuming. This next part is kind of a collective of people asking me how I come up with my character designs. This returns to my previous point about connecting the story of my character with their visual design. For me, it's very important to convey at least a little bit of my character's personality or their story through their visual design. By no means am I perfect at this, I'm still learning, but I think that if you look at some of my characters, you can tell parts of their personality or what they might do for a living or what kind of situation they're living in life. Just like real people, I try to give my characters their own unique styles as well, so that they're differentiated through their looks as much as possible. The same thing is also with their facial features, and I specifically have paid attention to each of my characters' eyes and how they look on their face. I'm also still making pretty beginner mistakes when it comes to designing my characters, so don't take this as gospel, but just pay attention to differentiating, finding their styles, and conveying at least a little bit of them through their design. Elle asks for the best practice advice. What should I focus on? When it comes to art practice, I feel like you need to answer that question yourself. What is it that you want to focus on? Do you want to develop your art style in a different direction? Do you want to learn particular methods, use a different medium, learn digital art? What is it that you want to focus on at that time? Once you've answered that question, you can seek means to learn through references, other people's tutorials, on your own, however it is that you find most suitable for yourself. If you simply want to learn how to draw certain things, then I recommend looking at artists that you particularly admire, how they draw those things. You can use their art or videos where they draw as references if they don't produce tutorials. Or then you can look at tutorial artists. But first, it's important to know what you want to focus on to begin with. Numiko asks, how can I learn anatomy and proportions? For them, I use basically the same methods as for bodies, which is breaking them down into shapes. However, simply studying pictures of real people helps a lot. This has especially helped me with learning how long limbs are. For example, how long a person's arms really are when they hold them by their sides and where their hands should be. Or how a person's shin is a little bit shorter than their thigh, which should be showing once you draw a person's legs. Ari asks, how long have you been drawing and how has your art looked throughout your journey? I've been drawing for about 12 years now. I mean, I've drawn for my whole life, but only started taking it seriously at around 12 years ago. Here are a few examples, but I did make a whole TikTok video where I showcased most of my art journey throughout, like, my recent-ish years. So, yeah, go watch that if you're interested. Random asks, who was your first art inspiration or art idol? Oh my god, I remember this like it was yesterday, bro. My first ever big inspiration / idol was Olga and the Snakes on Instagram. This was like back in the trenches of 2015, 2016, when I was like into mainly animal, like furry and pony art. Oh my god, I was so obsessed with everything they did because I was such an edgy little dumb kid. I'm not even sure if they pose nowadays, but god damn, I was obsessed back then. E asks, what OC have you had the longest? So I wasn't sure if you meant like in general or cult story OC. So out of the story OCs that I'm currently working on, Valak, but out of generally OCs that I had this character that I named Cloudy, and she was like this sort of persona that I used for years. And especially back when I was like in fandoms all the time, I made her like into multiple different forms just to fit the different fandoms I was in. Green Alien Arts asks, what art books do you use for studying and do you do your studies? Okay, gang, I need to be real. I've never used art books in my life for studying. I know, please put your pitchforks and stones away. I've always kind of just had the attitude that if it exists, I can draw it if I just put my mind to it. I've just used other people's works or pictures as references. I've never bothered with art books. I thought that it was complex, useless reading, nonsense that doesn't help me personally. I'm not saying it can't help you. If it's your thing, go for it. Absolutely, power to you. But I cannot stand it. It does not help me at all. It just makes everything needlessly complex for no reason. As for the studies part, I do studies. Every single art piece I do is a study, in my opinion. I work on my things, find that I learn through drawing the best. If I'm making art, if I'm making comics, if I'm making something, I'm always learning something new from it. Sam asks, how did you get into drawing? When I was still like a kid, I kind of had hopes of becoming like some kind of big artist, being known or whatever. But then like when I grew up into more like a teenager, I didn't really care that much about it. It became more like something I wanted to do just because I can do it and because I enjoy doing it. And also kind of because I didn't really feel like I excelled at anything else all that much. Donut asks, where do you learn to draw and also what markers do you use? I've always learned on my own, but I've always used references from various places like Instagram, Google, Pinterest, or Twitter. As for the markers I mainly use alcohol-based markers, the brands of which are Copics and Pro Markers, and for acrylic-based markers, I use Grabby. You can find my list of materials on TikTok if you're interested in the rest of the stuff I use. Unknown asks, what's your favorite underrated art supply? A bit of a tough one, this question. I would say regular graphite pencils or graphite sticks of like varying softnesses. I use them a lot in like my regular sketches to add some depth into parts that I otherwise can't achieve. I don't know if they count as underrated though, but I don't see other artists using them as much, but maybe that's because I mainly follow like digital artists. Another question for Raspberry Pancakes asking, do you believe in zodiac signs? Is this controversial? But I don't really like zodiacs at all. Oh my.
Not around here, partner.
Not to say there's anything wrong with liking them. If they're your thing, power to ya. Another question from Batman, this time asking what's your favorite food and or dessert? For foods, I like homemade stuff, like well-seasoned, very spicy stuff. I really like this pasta with ham strips that my dad makes because it's super spicy. It's really good. As for dessert, I just love candy and cookies. Those are really good. Till Death asks, how do you draw OCs occasionally without making them look different? This is about rinsing and repeating and also giving your characters features that are recognizable. If you have characters with unique features, it's going to be easier to make them look the same each time you draw them. It's always easier to differentiate if one character has downturned eyes, for example, and another one has upturned ones, or if another character has a really defined nose and another one has a straight one. Besides that, it's always about learning how to draw characters from different angles and those features in different angles. I mean, I still mess up with the same stuff all the time, but you know, that's just a part of the journey. Another question for Raspberry Pancake, this time asking, am I a boy kisser, a girl kisser, or ace? I'm a gay trans man, and I talk about that on TikTok live stream sometimes. Koi asks, how many OCs do you have currently? So for the longest time, I've given really vague answers to this question because honestly, I didn't even know myself. Obviously, I could easily count the Cold Story characters. Currently, there are 25 of them, but I felt like that wasn't good enough. Not after people have been asking for this long. So I decided that I should count every single OC I've ever made in my entire life, and only then was I fully pleased with the answer. So then we round out to about 125 characters altogether, plus concepts of many characters that I never ended up making or ended up scrapping or ended up never finishing. And also I'm most likely going to still end up making more OCs for the Cold Story itself, so there's going to be a few more. And another question from Raspberry Pancakes, this time asking, what do you think about Gen Alpha alt kids? I guess my opinion here is much the same as it was with like the posting thing. As long as your parents are kind of watching over what you do and you're not wearing fishnets at like 10 years old, then is it really my business? They also ask, who's an artist you hate? I don't think I could ever hate another artist, especially considering how much time and effort it takes to actually make all the art and the work, and how much effort you have to put into learning all the stuff that you do. With that said though, Cherry, Lottie, Colleen. Winnie Lynn asks, are there any art supplies you regret buying / don't think are worth the money? I think certain supplies are overpriced for sure, like some of the micro pens I use, but that might just be due to the retailers that sell them. I don't know if there's anything I regret buying, maybe like some mediums that I don't like using, for example, certain clays or different kinds of paints, because I don't really like working with them. But I wouldn't necessarily say that they aren't worth the money, especially some of the watercolors that I have. They're definitely worth the money, with them being some of the highest quality out in the market. Wyatt asks, what is your most and least favorite stage of the art process? I personally love to sketch in color, but I hate doing line art. this is why I no longer pre-line any of my drawings before I start coloring them. I kind of line them as I go, and my line art is more of part of the coloring so that I don't have to do the line art. It feels more like I'm carving out the character rather than like trying to line the drawing, which is much nicer and more enjoyable for me because I hate doing line art. I think I still kind of prefer sketching over coloring too, but that's mainly just because of coloring being such an arduous task and because it gets really monotonous after a while. Keyboard Smash asks, is there a piece of work you're most proud of? I have a special love for these two sketches that I've made. I don't know what it is about these two in particular that I like so much, but I do. There's also the ones where Kalma is being pictured from a couple of angles that I really like, but I couldn't be bothered to find them for the time being. There's also a few illustrations here that I really felt deserved a place on this list, so here are them as well. I don't know why I like these ones so much either, but I felt like they were really good when I made them. Coffee Cup asks, what are your favorite characters to draw and do you plan to have a storyline for them? Currently, I'm super obsessed with my Cold Story characters. I still do like to draw some of my older characters as well, but currently they are like my main focus. Particular favorites of mine to draw are Esther, Galma, and Blanchette, most definitely. But I do also like to draw Clement and Lafayette a lot. They all have like their own personal stories, but they're all a part of the bigger whole that is the Cold Story. Donnie asks, how do you study? Any book recommendations or YouTube channels? Any good way to deal with art block? Once again, I don't really watch YouTube channels or tutorials or tutorial artists all too much. I don't really watch art YouTubers all that much anyway, unless it's for like art community drama or some shit like that. It's unfortunately the same with books for me. I don't really know how to recommend something I don't personally use. As for art block, I oftentimes find that I get more creative if I break out of my usual patterns. For example, drawing some fan art can help, or using a different medium, trying a different art style, or trying to draw something that I usually wouldn't. Like jumping away from the character art may help if I draw some backgrounds or animals, for example, for a little while. In general, just stepping out of your own comfort zone usually gets the creativity back pretty quickly, or at least that's what works for me. I'm not saying it works for everybody. And that's just about it for all of the questions that I had today. There were quite a bit more questions under that post, but some of them I just straight up didn't feel like answering, and others were repeats or rewrites of the same questions that I answered today. So if you did not see your own question here today, that's most likely the reason why. Once again, thank you all for leaving so many questions under that post. Without you guys, this video wouldn't have been possible. And also, thank you guys so much once again for 150,000 followers on TikTok. Oh my goodness. This video is actually coming out so late that by now I already have 153,000 followers on TikTok. If you guys can't tell, I've really been procrastinating on editing this video, but it's finally being posted. Okay, yeah. So, thank you guys so much once again. Really quickly before I end the whole video, I just want to talk about the character I've been drawing this entire time. The character in the background is Aime. He's my most recent addition to the Cold Story cast. I didn't really like how this one turned out in the end, but it's fine. At least I got a good video out of it, I think. That's really all I have for today. Here's the final result. Thank you guys again so much for 150,000 followers, and thank you guys for watching. Goodbye!